Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan of Total Retail, and joining me today is Mark Murrell, the founder and CEO of Get Maine Lobster. We're going to be talking to Mark today a little bit about his business and how it's kind of evolved over the course of the last year, and it's particularly its growing direct-to-consumer business. So thank you for joining me today, Mark.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So to get us started, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Get Maine Lobster? And you know, as I noted, you're the founder of the company. So tell us a little bit about your inspiration for starting the business.
Yeah, well, I actually love our origin story because I tell people that the business was created by mistake. At the time, I grew up here in Maine. At the time, I was living in Chicago, visiting Maine. A friend of mine owned a fish market in Bath, Maine, and said, "Hey, Mark, I want to sell lobster online." And I said, "Wow, that seems pretty cool. Let me do some research for you." And, you know, at the time, my background was a marketing consultant with a focus on internet and mobile. So I did some research, saw that the demand was pretty high, not a lot of competition for that particular niche. And I said, "You should do it." And he says, "But I don't know what I'm doing." I said, "Well, I could do it for you, and this is what it'll cost." And I wasn't going to charge him a lot of money, but he kind of balked at the idea because I told him that you really will have to invest in customer experience. You'll need somebody that'll address customer issues. He didn't like that idea. So right then and there, I said, "Well, I'm going to do it and you can fulfill my orders." And that was in late 2009. In a nutshell, what we do is we procure the finest, lobster in the state of Maine and beyond. We also have a lot of value add products, ready to cook, lobster mac and cheese, things like that. And we carefully put them in a box, ship them overnight to your doorstep. So we make Maine lobster and seafood readily available to anyone in the continental U.S. and sometimes beyond.
That's really interesting. First off, it's a great story.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned the product shipped directly to customers via D2C site. Any other distribution channels? Are you selling to B2B, to restaurants, or any other sales channels that exist for Get Maine Lobster?
Yeah, we do local wholesale here in Portland. So all those great restaurants, when you visit Portland, Maine, oftentimes you're getting lobster that you sold to them. We have a couple of restaurants and communities on the B2B side of things. And we also help some purveyors with the functionality of offering. So for example, a grocery store, if they want to offer lobster to their customers, but don't want to carry it, we're very good at the direct-to-consumer experience. So we often get enlisted to help with that. 90% of our business is direct-to-consumer.
Yeah, and I want to kind of dig a little deeper into that direct-to-consumer side of the business. Obviously, the retail industry and all industries have been felt the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, but really some of the companies that have been best positioned to kind of weather the storm, so to speak, have been companies that had an existing direct-to-consumer infrastructure set up, had that relationship with their customers. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the impact that COVID-19 has had on Get Maine Lobster's business?
Yeah. Well, I had a feeling that demand was going to increase. It was like late Feb, early March, so I did a couple of tests to see if I was right. Just with our, existing customers, I've had the benefit of prior to this year serving, well over 300,000 people. So we have a pretty good customer base. And so the velocity on those particular days that I did that test was far higher, 5-6 times higher than what I thought it should be. So I was like, all right, here we go. Here we go. So then I invested heavily and took advantage of the opportunity that people would be seeking services like ours, So we doubled down on traffic driving, increased capacity, added new products, all that jazz.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the product in a second, but for that, you doubled down. Were you seeing a lot of, maybe both, were you seeing new customers come to the brand that you had never engaged with before? And maybe also your existing customers were purchasing more frequently. They were going out to restaurants less, people were at home. Maybe
Yeah.
did you see both of that, or maybe one or the other?
Both, yeah, definitely. So typically in a March, it'll be a 60-40, 60 return, 40 new. And I think March was 80 new, 20 return. So, which is amazing for us, right? Because the key thing for us is the, CAC to LTV ratio. And when that's a beautiful number,
Yeah,
then you're excited. So we were getting the new people coming back quicker than normal. We're in a luxury food item, so we don't expect you to order every month. Some people do, but we expect, 1 or 2 orders a year. But now we were getting, more and more people ordering quite more often than that. So it was exciting.
Yeah, that's great. When you mentioned that you did that test in late February, early March, the numbers, kind of dictated, okay, there's something here. You mentioned that you kind of doubled down at that point. Were there certain channels that you invested in that produced, yielded the best benefits? Was it search? Was it social? Other different channels that you maybe have invested in?
Yeah. So we had, we've always run ads, right? We just hadn't run them at scale. The only time we really run them at scale is December, when we know that we're going to get a great CAC and return on ad spend. And I've always been pretty conservative until now. I believed that my risk was very, very low. So the agency that was running our ads, I said, you have no limit as long as you keep your CAC at X. And the rest is history.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a great indicator of what was to come as you were on the trend earlier than others, which is a boon to your business. You mentioned the product, so let's talk a little bit about what you've done at Get Maine Lobster to evolve your product offering to account for some of the changes in behavior that we've seen during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the usual suspects still go at a really high click, but we did see that the stuff that is, yummy yet easy. So one of the weirdest, it's not a weird product, but a beef Wellington was probably one of the heroes, still is, right? Very hard for us to keep in house, even though we have multiple sources, for the product. But I believe that one because it arrives, you can cook from frozen in the oven. And it's very much a comfort food. So, and it's got a lot of history, right? Beef Wellington's been around forever. It feels luxurious, all that stuff. So I get the restaurant experience at home and I get comfort because this is a comfort product. Our lobster mac and cheese, same thing. We had a really hard time staying on top of it. It's exceptional, but also mac and cheese, right? That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I think that's all we all, got the COVID-15 because we're eating products like that. And then our lobster rolls have never sold like this before. I mean, they always sell well, but it's absolutely crazy. We can't keep up. That's been a real struggle. It's keeping up with the rolls, right? Because it's a very special roll, New England split top. And we were just ordering thousands of them a week.
Yeah.
And it was just wild.
So that leads me into kind of a follow-up question, Mark, in terms of, you mentioned the challenge was keeping up with the demand. So from an operational perspective, what did that mean for you? I don't know how large your team is. Did you have to bring on new staff and in terms of getting your orders out and in time and to, what did that look like for you in terms of your supply chain?
Yeah. Everything was difficult, right? Luckily, we have great relationships here in the States. So our core heroes were never an issue. Freezer was full at all times. And The tanks were full, at all times. We never ran out of that stuff. Boxes, coolant, labor, right? That was always an issue. In April was the most difficult because the demand just happened overnight, right? And so, well, when we chose to pour gasoline on the fire, so it was really hard because we did not want to bring anybody in, right? At the same time, we kind of needed help. So I really relied on family and friends for the month of April. And just were very careful because I also wanted to stay healthy, not just myself, but everyone. So I was on the line. I was in the trenches for 2-3 months until we finally got a handle on things. And then it was buying a forklift, and forklift saved us hours, right? Because then we could palletize all the orders, wrap them, and instead of one by one putting them on the UPS truck, we can forklift them in.
Yeah.
Just weird things like that. And then we actually grew out of our facility, so we had to get a second one. So now we have 2 facilities, so that we could increase our capacity to be able to keep up with demand.
Yeah, I guess, to our discussion, these are good problems to have, I guess. If you can ramp up and you serve that new customer a good experience, the theory being then if they, have that good experience, they'll come back and purchase again, to your point around, CAC versus your LTV.
Exactly. Yeah. And the key is we will, and we did make mistakes. It's how we handle and make things right that gets them to come back, because there's no way that we're going to bat 1,000, when you're growing at, 700x, right? Or 7x, I'm sorry, 700%. So, but yeah, we obsess with the customer experience because we know that that's such an important variable, because it allows us to invest in our growth, knowing that, hey, we're going to knock their socks off, even if we get it wrong the first time, because we do such a good job of making it right, that they're going to come back and they're going to be a loyal customer. And that costs you less money when you have a loyal customer like that, because not only do they recruit new ones for you, they come to you automatically. You don't even have to reach out and say, hey, will you please buy lobster this week?
Yeah.
They're going on their own.
Yeah, that's been borne out over the years that, the cost of acquiring a new customer versus retaining an existing one. It's just the economics of it are so much, in the favor of, retention, that it makes a lot of sense. The focus on customer experience that you've put. Which leads me into another question I wanted to talk a little bit about, Mark, in terms of brand partnerships. So how have some of the brand partnerships that you've formed at Get Maine Lobster, with MasterCard, for example, RTIC, how have they helped kind of fuel the growth that you've seen?
It's always awesome to be able to connect yourself with a well-known global brand that gives you sort of a badge of honor. So, for example, MasterCard, right? They're not just going to work with anyone. They're going to do their diligence and ensure that we're the right partner, because we're going to service their customers. So you can trust Get Maine Lobster, quote unquote, because they work, MasterCard does. Same thing with Arctic, right? They got a cool product, does very, very well. And we wanted to do some cool stuff. They wanted to do cool stuff. And we just had conversations and talked about it and did some cool stuff together. So, having relationships like that, well, I think creatively, it makes you think out of the box, right? Mm-hmm. But then the other part of it is just collaboration is awesome. We've been collaborating since day one, whether it be with Sea Bags, which is a local company here, or Shipyard Brewing, which is another, local company that's global. A variety. Chase Bank, right? We did stuff with them. It really says a lot about us as a brand that we're attached to these other companies that are well respected as well.
Yeah. And to your point too, it kind of creates that diversity, or that collaboration, gets some new thought processes going and makes you more creative.
Totally. Yeah. I think just trying to come up with campaigns, right? And then logistically figuring it out, like with Arctic, right? there's logistics behind that. All right. How are we going to figure this out? Right. What if I sell too many? What's your production time? Can I fit lobsters in this container? What am I going to put the container in? Do I have to put in a styro, or it's just going to be a regular corrugate? So it's kind of fun designing around the specs of something we've never shipped in before.
And shipping a unique product too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not shipping a pair of sneakers, so we talked about the challenges. The retail industry, obviously, your business has been in a position to see growth during this time. But, the restaurant industry, as we look in other spaces, really, been challenged as well by the pandemic, and continues as we, have started this new year. What does that, opportunities does it potentially present for a D2C food brand like Get Maine Lobster? Kind of, what's your outlook in terms of the business for 2021?
Yeah, I think it's going to force innovation and collaboration between companies like mine and restaurant food service, grocery even, right? I mean, grocery, had awesome challenge, right? At the same time, they made some discoveries of like, wow, so this is what happens during something like this. And I'm going to get more strategic about my offerings because I now have a responsibility, right? They ran out of protein multiple times everywhere. So having a more flexible system of distribution of food is essential. No longer can a restaurant rely on, hey, it's sunny and 75 and we have outdoor seating, and it's Friday. We're going to crush it. Instead, they have to, how do I get a big shiny object that's going to get people to come here and do curbside pickup for now? And then, what can I do to make my business more three-dimensional or four-dimensional so that if this occurs again, I'm ready, and/or I'm a much beefier company because I implemented these things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Some of these changes that might have been further down in the pipeline, this is a long-term plan has been accelerated, and, it could become an essential part of a restaurant's business going forward. Is that kind of what you're seeing too?
Yeah, I mean, to give a couple restaurants an idea, right? I mean, I immediately would have set up a channel and did live cooking classes and provide curbside pickup for raw ingredients. Like, boom, day one. And one thing I've always wanted to do for restaurants for a long time now is make their signature meals ready to cook and available to any doorstep in the United States. That should have been done, a while ago. It's going to exist now, right? Which is awesome for us as consumers. But it's unfortunate today because it doesn't exist yet. But how cool would that be if, your favorite chef at your favorite restaurant was live every Thursday night putting on a cooking show? And I know some of them are, right? Some of them are doing that to get, creative, but
yeah, it's a great idea and an opportunity that you could potentially leverage, with, as capacities are, if you're allowed to have your doors open at this point, you're obviously not operating at 100% capacity. So trying to find ways to generate revenue. Yeah, those are some great ideas.
Yeah. Totally.
So Mark, my final question, and you've been in a unique position where, as we said, kind of Get Maine Lobsters had seen this unprecedented growth, 7x growth in 2020, which leads me into, okay, you got to keep pace. You got to keep that momentum going in 2021. As the CEO, where is your attention focused as you look to continue that growth? Is it, you mentioned some of the things you're doing with your product. We talked a little bit about kind of your staff and people, and maybe it's technology investments, maybe across the board, all those things. Tell us a little bit about, what's got your attention as we start this new year.
Yep. We definitely want to be able to provide more proteins, plant-based and otherwise, right? So state of Maine has a lot of great food. We have more millennial farmers per capita than anywhere in the United States. And when you've got young people doing innovative things, comes awesome opportunities for food. Along with that, we're hoping things start to open up more, and we're making some investments in key parts of the country where we believe there's an opportunity. And for example, we have a salesperson in Austin, Texas. I think Austin, as most people are probably recognizing now, is about to become a pretty major location in the United States, if not one of the most popular places in the United States. So I want to have a footprint there. Developing relationships with those that need to do something fun and cool for their customers, getting those installed and consistent. But the most exciting thing is that there was not one holiday this year where we did not have to throttle because of capacity. So, the learnings that we all, received during 2020, we're working very hard to ensure that we don't have to throttle in 2021, because we want to grow another 30% over 2020. That's our intention. So we've designed already, and we're already in attack mode. So we did take a little bit of time off because we were pretty beat up from December. But now we got Valentine's Day coming up, and that's going to be very busy for us.
Yeah, you're ready to go. In terms of your customers, I just one follow up there. Are most of your customers concentrated in the New England region? Are you pretty national at this point? Where do your customers lie?
California's number one.
Really? Okay.
New York number two, Florida 3, Texas as a state, mostly Dallas is 4. Philly is a great market. I would say New England's probably our worst market.
Interesting.
But we spend most of our investment so I try to look at things from a zip radius standpoint, zip radius to conversion rate. So, what zip radius has the highest conversion rate? Typically, our product is shinier the further away you are. And you really can't get lobster fresher than a service like mine. It's impossible. So even if you're like, I got a seafood guy down the street, even in Jersey, you don't know how long it's been sitting in his tank.
That's what I can imagine, to your point, somebody, looking to make a purchase in Dallas, Texas, they have less options. Yours is, to your point, is a little, your product is fresh and it's available to them to ship. And there's not necessarily the market choices that they would have in other areas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we focused on those markets where we're most attractive, right? And that tends to be West Coast, and New York's, I think, a winner for everyone, simply because there's there's less people there now, but there's a lot of people there. Yeah.
Great. Well, this has been a great conversation. I want to take the opportunity to thank Mark Murrell, the founder and CEO of Get Maine Lobster, for joining me today on Total Retail Talks. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.